My name is Kennedy Sullivan, and this is my presentation on Erikson's psychosocial development and social emotional development. So here we see a chart that breaks down the different stages of the psychosocial development. This begins from infancy, so from birth, and all the way up until our death. So here is just a really quick way to look at the age that coincides with the psychosocial crisis and or task, as well as the virtue that is developed within these different stages. So first we are going to go over trust versus mistrust. So this begins in the first year of life, and is when we are obviously dependent on our caregivers, whether that be our parents or our guardians. Our life only will continue if we are being taken care of by somebody, because we do not yet have the means to do so. So here we are placing our trust and being taken care of by those people. And so we can either have a very loving and caring parent, or we can have a parent who's just kind of checked out and doesn't really know what's going on. So here we see a positive outcome of hopes, where the infant knows that they are going to be taken care of and they trust, and the negative outcome being fear or suspicion of not being responded to when needed, and not knowing if their care is going to be addressed. And then we move on to autonomy versus doubt. So this begins from ages 1 to 3. And then here we see that that development of independence. So we see children starting to begin to walk or have more confidence in themselves to crawl and different things like that. They're making more decisions on their own. They're learning by trial and error. So when they stand up and they wobble and they get a step in, and then they have that confidence to move forward. So here we see a positive outcome of independence and a negative outcome of shame, because if they can't complete tasks that they try to independently, then they develop a little bit of doubt and fear in themselves. And then we're moving on to the initiative versus guilt stage. So we see this between ages 3 and 5. Here we see a development of leadership skills. So children taking that role in play and initiating conversations with other children and sharing and playing with them. We also, during this stage, we get children questioning everything. As you know, when you're working or have children from this age group, that they're always asking why, how come, why is this, why is that, why can't I do this? It's because they're trying to understand and find the reasoning of the world, and they're also learning how they make their own decisions, why they make their own decisions, why they feel that way, why they're having the emotions they're having. And here the positive outcome we find is purpose. They find what their purpose is. They know that they want to share and interact with their friends, or not, or want to do things independently, or need help. And then our negative outcome here is they can feel a sense of inadequacy when they can't complete a task, or when somebody doesn't want to play with them. All right, moving on to one of the most important stages. All of these stages are very important, but this is where we get a lot of growth, is industry versus inferiority. So this happens between ages 6 and 12. This is where children start to take pride in their actions and their accomplishments. So, in school, in elementary school, when they have award ceremonies and they have, awards for best mathematician in class, or the perfect attendance, they are prideful, and they feel happy and good about their accomplishments. And during this stage, us as teachers, we play a great role in this stage of development, because when they're at school, they are learning and they're growing and they're developing, and so and when they're being rewarded for their good actions or rewarded for their acts of kindness, that is where we take a great role in this developmental stage. Here they're continuing to learn through trial and error. and they're learning to control their competencies. So they're learning what they are good at and what they want to accomplish, and they're learning how to get there and what doesn't work. So here we have a positive outcome of competency and a negative outcome of inferiority, when they can't accomplish the tasks that they're trying to accomplish, or they don't get the recognition that they deserve for their accomplishments. Okay, moving on to identity versus role confusion. This happens between ages 12 and 18. So these are the peak years of, body development. Children tend to hit puberty during these times. So they have a lot of going on with their hormones and their emotions, and they're trying to find out who they are. And they're trying to develop that sense of independence and being responsible and stepping away from their caregivers and wanting to take their life into their own hands. They're learning who they want to be in life. I mean, I know whenever I was 18, I thought that I wanted to be a marine biologist, and that didn't work out, and I'm happy that it didn't work out. And once I hit my freshman year of college, I knew I wanted to be a teacher. And so it's just trying to find who you are, and discovering yourself. This is a great stage of life and understanding who you are and the role you want to play in the world. Here we have a positive outcome of fidelity, and then we have a negative outcome of rebellion. So when they don't really know who they are, and they're not getting that guidance, and they don't want to be responsible, and they don't want to be independent, they tend to rebel against society and what societal norms are. Okay. Moving on to intimacy versus isolation. So this happens between ages 18 to 40. This is when we're finding love and finding those people that we want to share ourselves and share our lives with. I'm currently in technically this, and I'm sure many of us in this class are in this stage of intimacy versus isolation. We're trying to learn how to express our love and, finding ourselves and finding somebody that we want to share ourselves with on an intimate level, and learning how to not only love others, but love ourselves. This is a very important time, because if you don't know how to love yourself, you're going to feel very isolated. And if you don't have somebody that loves you as well, it's very lonely. And so our positive outcomes here, we have love, and then our negative outcome is isolation, feeling lonely and just kind of lost in the world. All right, and then moving on, we have our generativity, struggle with saying that word, and stagnation. So this happens between ages 40 and 65. So this is where we're really trying to be the most productive versions of ourselves. We're trying to be a person who offers something to society and has a productive role. We are generally at this age settled in our lives, and we're very comfortable. Our children have been raised, or we're raising them a little bit more towards adulthood. And then here's where we look out for others, where we care for others, and where we have already accomplished the things that we wanted in our life. And so we then are trying to help others accomplish those daunting tasks that we can come by in life. Life's hard. And during this stage, hopefully you kind of have some more things figured out. You have a little bit more wisdom, and you share that with others, and you have a more caring personality and role in society. So here our positive outcome is obviously care. So looking out for others and just being a productive citizen to the world and offering something to the world. And then a negative outcome is being unproductive, just kind of being just a mooch on society, taking advantage of others and of the world and what it has to offer. And then we reach our final stage. So this is our ego integrity versus despair. So this happens between ages 65 to our death. So here we look back and we have lots of reflection on our life and our accomplishments and what we've created and what we are leaving behind in the world. And we are looking at what our lives and what it looked like and trying to figure out if it is what we wanted and it is what we want to leave as a legacy, and then finding that closure before we die and learning how to accept death and not being afraid of it, and passing what we have learned throughout this lifetime, if we're all ever so lucky to reach the age of 65 plus, to then be able to pass that wisdom down and show people that you can live the life that you want to live, or it's where lots of people have despair and regret from not living the life that they wanted to live. So here our positive outcome would be wisdom, and our negative outcome would be dissatisfaction. So now we're going to move on to social emotional development. So here it's just a breakdown of the ways that we emerge and grow in our social emotional development. So this begins with when we learn to have that sense of security and trust in the people that are taking care of us, when they are being responsive caregivers, when an infant cries and they are being responded to because that's their only form of communication. This also helps them develop an emotional security. So this is very important because this is where in infancy, they begin to discover themselves. They're trusting adults and trying to understand the world around them. This all happens in infancy, and it continues to grow as we get older. And during these stages of development in our social emotional stage, we are learning temperament. So once again, from infancy, we're learning how to understand body language, facial expression, emotional expression, when somebody is sad, when somebody is happy, when somebody is, stressed. And this is where we are learning how to regulate our emotions based on the way that the adults that are raising us and caring for us respond. And this is where we are discovering the world and discovering ourselves. And then during these stages, we are also learning impulse control. So as we grow from infancy, to our toddler years and to our teens, adulthood, and so on and so forth, we learn how to control our impulses. And this is something that is practiced unconsciously through peer interaction, through sharing with others and playing with others. And then we're also just learning how to understanding how to be social. So we're learning how to respond to communication, and adult interaction during this time is vital. If we do not have adult interaction during this time, we will not learn how to interact with others and how we are supposed to control our impulses and just behave properly in a social environment. Here we're also learning how to have effective empathy. So we're learning how to share, and this is where children start to be helpful and they care, and they're learning morals based on the adults and the different other children around them. And then we are also learning self-efficacy. So this is where we're learning how to be independent. This begins as early as infancy, where they can learn that they can, hold their own bottle, or if they want to look at a toy, or they want a certain toy, or they're crying for a pacifier. This is where they're learning that independence, and it continues to grow as we get older and reach adulthood, and they begin to understand that they can complete tasks on their own. And then they're also learning their sense of self. So this, happens during play, during social interactions with peers and adults, and we're learning how to do this from such a young age. And like I mentioned before, the adult interaction is vital during these times because this is where we learn. Those are our examples. So that was my presentation. I hope that you enjoyed it. I know it was a lot of information in kind of a short period of time. So if you have any questions, please feel free to reach out. And I hope this was an informative presentation. Thank you.